London, 1969. Jimi Hendrix was walking down Carnaby Street after a recording session when he heard something that made him stop dead in his tracks. Someone was playing his song, but it sounded wrong, broken, struggling, desperate. He turned the corner and saw a teenage kid sitting on the pavement with a guitar that had only 3 strings and a cracked neck, playing Jimi's signature riff like his life depended on it. What Jimi did next changed that kid's life forever. And 50 years later, that kid, now a legendary session guitarist, finally told the world what happened. It was late September, the kind of gray London afternoon that made you want to stay indoors. But Jimi had been in the studio since morning, working on tracks that weren't coming together the way he wanted. Sometimes the best thing to do was walk, clear your head, let the music settle. Carnaby Street was quieter than usual for a Thursday. The boutiques were still open, selling the colorful clothes and psychedelic accessories that had made the street famous. But the summer crowds had thinned, and there was a melancholy feeling in the air, like the party was winding down. Jimi had his collar turned up against the drizzle, his afro getting damp despite his hat. He was lost in thought, mentally rearranging the chord progression he'd been struggling with, when he heard it. A guitar, playing something familiar, very familiar. He stopped walking, tilted his head, trying to place it. The sound was coming from around the corner, near the entrance to one of the smaller side streets. And then recognition hit him like electricity. Someone was playing the opening riff to his song, the one that had made him famous, the one that every guitarist in London was trying to copy. But something was wrong with it. The notes were there, the rhythm was right, but the sound was broken. Like hearing your own voice on a damaged recording, recognizable but distorted. Jimi turned the corner and saw him. A kid, maybe 16 or 17, was sitting in a doorway hunched over a guitar that looked like it had been through a war. The body was scratched and dented, with a crack running down the side that someone had tried to fix with what looked like glue and hope. The neck was slightly warped, held in alignment by electrical tape wrapped around the joint. And most striking of all, the guitar only had 3 strings. The top 3 strings were missing entirely, broken off at the bridge. Only the low E, A, and D strings remained. And yet this kid was playing Jimi's riff, adapting it for 3 strings, making it work through sheer determination and an innate understanding of how the music should feel. Jimi stood there, maybe 10 feet away, watching. The kid hadn't noticed him yet. His eyes were closed, his whole body moving slightly with the rhythm, despite the cold and the drizzle. His fingers were raw and raffed, no calluses yet, which meant he hadn't been playing long. His clothes were worn, too thin for the weather. A cardboard sign next to him said, "Please help, saving for guitar strings." The kid was playing from memory, and not just copying the notes. He internalized the feel of the music, the attitude, the emotion that Jimi had put into it. With only 3 strings and a broken guitar, this teenager was capturing something essential about the song that most people with perfect instruments missed.
Jimi watched the kid's hands. The fingering was wrong. It had to be, with half the strings missing, but it was ingeniously wrong. The kid had figured out how to get the melody across using only the bass strings, bending them, sliding, using every technique he could find to compensate for what he didn't have. A few people walked past, barely glancing at the street musician. One person dropped a few coins in the open guitar case in front of him. The kid didn't open his eyes, just nodded slightly and kept playing. When he finished the riff, the kid paused, flexed his sore fingers, and started again. This time, Jimi could hear that he was trying to add the solo part, adapting it for 3 strings. It was impossible. The solo needed the full range of the guitar, but the kid was trying anyway, finding workarounds, using hammer-ons and pull-offs to create the illusion of notes that couldn't physically be there. Jimi felt something catch in his throat. This wasn't just some kid copying music. This was someone who understood music at a level that couldn't be taught. This was raw talent fighting against impossible circumstances and refusing to give up. He walked closer. The kid's eyes opened, noticed someone standing there, and started to apologize. "Sorry if I'm not doing it right. I only know it from listening to the radio. I can't afford the record." Then he really looked at who was standing in front of him, and his voice died. "You're," the kid whispered, his face going pale. "You're Jimi Hendrix!" Jimmy knelt down so they were at eye level. "What's your name?" "Tommy. Tommy Walsh." "How long have you been playing, Tommy?" 6 months, maybe 7. I found this guitar in a skip, already broken. Been trying to fix it, but I can't afford strings." He looked embarrassed. "I know I'm playing your song wrong. I love the way it sounds, and I wanted to try." "You're not playing it wrong. You're playing it differently. And you know what? Most guitarists with 6 perfect strings don't play it as well as you just did with 3 broken ones." Tommy stared at him like he wasn't sure if this was real or if the cold had made him hallucinate. "Really? Really? Where did you learn to bend notes like that?" "I don't know. I just heard you do it on the radio and tried to figure out how. The strings are old, so they don't bend smooth, but if I push hard enough—" Jimmy looked at Tommy's fingers more closely. They were bleeding, small cuts where the old, rough strings had torn the skin. This kid had been playing until his fingers bled because he loved music that much.
"How many hours a day do you practice?" Jimmy asked. Tommy looked down. "I don't really have anything else to do. Sometimes I'm here from morning till night. People give me coins sometimes. On good days, I make enough for food. On bad days, I just play anyway. It helps me forget about being cold or hungry." Jimmy felt something twist in his chest. He'd been hungry as a kid. He'd played guitar when he should have been eating. He knew exactly what it felt like to have nothing but music. "What were you doing before you ended up here?" Jimmy asked gently. "Mom got sick. Cancer. Took 2 years. Dad tried to keep it together, but when she died, he just broke. Started drinking, lost his job, lost the flat. I tried to help, but I was just a kid. One day I came back from school and he was gone. Left a note saying he couldn't do it anymore." Tommy's voice was flat, like he'd told this story enough times that it didn't hurt anymore, but Jimmy could see the pain in his eyes. "Social services tried to place me with foster families, but I kept running away. I'd rather be on my own than with people who don't want me. At least out here, the guitar keeps me company." Jimmy sat down on the cold pavement next to Tommy, not caring about his expensive coat getting wet. "I understand more than you think. I grew up without much. My mom died when I was young, too. Music was the only thing that made sense when nothing else did." Tommy looked at him with surprise. "You? But you're Jimi Hendrix." "Now I am. But before that, I was just a kid with a cheap guitar and a dream. I slept in places I shouldn't have, went hungry so I could buy strings, got kicked out of bands, failed more times than I succeeded. The difference between me and a lot of other people wasn't talent. It was that I didn't stop, no matter how hard it got." "How old are you?" 16, almost 17. "You got family?" Tommy looked down. "Mom died 2 years ago. Dad couldn't handle it. I've been on my own for about a year. Been staying at a shelter when they have room, streets when they don't." Jimmy felt his heart break. Here was a kid with genuine talent, possibly genius-level natural ability, living on the streets with a broken guitar and 3 strings. How many times had Jimmy himself been close to this? How many times had he played with borrowed instruments, slept in places he shouldn't, skipped meals to afford guitar strings? "Play something else for me, Jimmy. Anything you want." I only really know a few things, bits of your songs that I've heard. I can't afford lessons or music books." "Then play what you know. Show me what you can do." Tommy took a shaky breath and started playing. He'd adapted another melody, something he'd heard on the radio, making it work with 3 strings. And then he started singing, his voice raw but powerful, finding harmonies that shouldn't work but somehow did.
Jimmy listened, not just with his ears, but with everything he'd learned about music in his 26 years. This kid had it, that indefinable thing that separated someone who played guitar from someone who was a musician. Tommy wasn't just making sounds, he was expressing something, communicating emotion through a broken instrument. When Tommy finished, Jimmy stood up. "Wait here, don't move." "What? Why?" "Just trust me." Jimmy walked quickly back toward Carnaby Street and into a music shop he knew, 3 doors down. The owner recognized him immediately. "Jimmy, good to see you. What can I need a guitar, something good but not expensive, and a full set of strings. Actually, make it 3 sets and a case." "Sure, mate. For you?" "For someone else. Quick as you can." 5 minutes later, Jimmy was walking back around the corner with a brand new acoustic guitar. Nothing fancy, but solid, playable, with 6 working strings, and a bag with extra strings, picks, and a basic instruction book he'd grabbed at the last second. Tommy was still there, hunched over his broken guitar, trying to stay warm. When he saw Jimmy coming back, confusion crossed his face. Jimmy knelt down again and held out the guitar. "This is for you." Tommy stared. "What?" "The guitar. It's yours. And these," he handed over the bag, "strings, picks, and a book that might help you learn some things." I can't afford this." "You're not buying it. I'm giving it to you. Consider it an investment in the future." Tommy's hands were shaking as he reached for the guitar. He held it like it was made of glass, like he was afraid it might disappear. "Why would you do this?" "Because you've got something special, Tommy, real talent, and talent like yours shouldn't be held back by a broken guitar and missing strings. You understand what I'm playing, not just how to copy it. That's rare. That matters."
Tommy's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just promise me something." "Anything." "Promise me you'll keep playing. Promise me you won't give up, because the world needs to hear what you can do." "I promise," Tommy whispered. Jimmy sat down next to him, taking the broken 3-string guitar. "Mind if I try this?" Tommy nodded, speechless, clutching his new guitar. Jimmy played the broken instrument, working with its limitations, finding the music in its brokenness. He showed Tommy how to make the most of what you have, how limitations can force you to be creative, how sometimes the best music comes from the struggle. They sat there for maybe half an hour, 2 guitarists in a doorway on a gray London afternoon, sharing music. People walked by, some recognizing Jimmy, most just seeing 2 musicians jamming. A small crowd gathered. Someone took a photo that would later become famous, Jimi Hendrix and an unknown teenager sitting in a doorway making music together. When Jimmy finally stood to leave, he pulled out his wallet and handed Tommy 20 pounds. "Get yourself somewhere warm tonight and some food. Can't play guitar if you're starving." "I'll pay you back," Tommy said. "Someday, I swear I'll—" "Don't pay me back. Pay it forward. When you make it, and you will make it, help some other kid who's where you are now. That's how this works." Jimmy started to walk away, then turned back. "Tommy, one more thing." "Yeah?" "That 3-string guitar, keep it. Don't throw it away. Because you made music on something that shouldn't be able to make music. That's magic. That's what being a musician really means. Don't forget that when you have perfect instruments and everything you need. The music isn't in the guitar, it's in you." Tommy nodded, unable to speak through his tears. Jimi Hendrix walked away, back toward his hotel, his heart lighter than it had been all day. He'd gone for a walk to clear his head about a song he couldn't finish. Instead, he'd been reminded why music mattered in the first place. For 50 years, Tommy Walsh kept that story private. He became a session guitarist, exactly as Jimmy had predicted. He played on hundreds of records, worked with some of the biggest names in music. He kept both guitars, the broken 3-string one that Jimi had played and the one Jimi had bought him that day.
In 2019, at age 67, Tommy finally told the full story in an interview. By then, he'd had a 40-year career, taught hundreds of students, and helped countless young musicians get their start. "People ask me how I became a session guitarist," Tommy said in that interview. "The truth is, Jimi Hendrix saw something in a homeless kid with a broken guitar and decided to invest in it. Not with money, though the guitar and strings helped, but with belief. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. He showed me that the music isn't in the instrument, it's in the musician." Tommy went on, "I still have both guitars, the broken one and the one Jimi bought me. Sometimes I play the broken one when I'm teaching, just to remind my students that limitations don't define you. I tell them about sitting in a doorway with 3 strings and Jimi Hendrix stopping to listen, because that's what great musicians do. They recognize talent even when it's hidden in poverty and broken instruments." The photo from that day, Jimi and Tommy in the doorway, sold at auction in 2020 for $75,000. Tommy donated the entire proceeds to a charity that provides instruments to homeless youth. When asked about it, he said simply, "Jimi told me to pay it forward. I'm still doing what he asked." Today, there are hundreds of kids who have guitars because of Tommy, and Tommy has guitars because of Jimi Hendrix. It's a chain of generosity that started with a man who stopped walking when he heard broken music and recognized the beauty in it. The lesson isn't just about helping others, though that's part of it. The lesson is about seeing past the surface. Jimi didn't hear a kid with a broken guitar playing badly. He heard someone making the most of what they had, refusing to let circumstances define their dreams. That's what legends do. They don't just create great art, they recognize greatness in others, even when it's hidden in a doorway, struggling with 3 strings and raw fingers. If this story moved you, remember, you never know who's listening. You never know whose life you might change by stopping, paying attention, and choosing to help instead of walking on. Subscribe for more untold stories about when legends recognized greatness in the most unexpected places.